So I want to share a part of my testimony today. My testimony concerning controlled opposition. I've never actually shared my full testimony of how I came to Christ. Rather, it is something that I'd like to share in time, hopefully sooner rather than later, probably on this channel. But for now, I want to stick to this subject. I'm hoping that somebody sees this and maybe is able to maybe use this information that I'm about to give you and maybe think about things a little bit differently and take a look at the environment that we find ourselves in today, because I feel like this is more relevant today, much more relevant today than it was then, and maybe see some things that they didn't see before. So let's rewind back to I was 27 years old, so this was about almost 20 years ago. And at the time, I was running a company, was making a lot of money, I was living a life in the world, driving the brand new car, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, just acting 27-year-old man, acting probably like a 20-year-old kid. And what happened is I decided to take some time off. And I thought that I could just go back to my same level of income, no problem. And what ended up happening is I was never able to get the same job, which surprised me. And at the same exact time, the industry that I work in crashed. So I went from making a ton of money to struggling to even get by. And it humbled me. I believe God brought me there. He broke me. And my mindset began to change a little bit. A mindset of somebody who accepted everything that he saw in the world as being legit, to someone that started questioning everything and saying, whoa, wait a second. Something doesn't feel right about this. So I started slowly. I started to look into certain subjects that I had never had any interest before in. And keep in mind, I'm not a believer at this point in time in my life. I didn't come to be a believer. I was about 29 when this breaking happened, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. I didn't come to be a believer until the age of 35. So I started looking into the monetary system. That was how I started to kind of open my eyes. Something doesn't feel right about this. And as soon as I started to look into it, it was like a rabbit hole. It was like, whoa, that leads me to have to look into this, the Federal Reserve. I started looking into the history and how some of the things that we've been told weren't necessarily accurate. And I watched a video. I watched a documentary called From Freedom to Fascism, which absolutely opened my eyes into many things. So I don't want to bore you. I don't want to go too far down that. But the bottom line is I was looking for something. I was looking for the truth, and I ended up joining this message forum. Okay, which at the time was the single best place of truth that I had ever found. The name of the message forum was goldismoney.com, by the way, in case everyone wants to. That message forum is no longer available. That's part of the story, but Gold is Money 2 is still out there. So I'm on this message forum. It was not a Christian message forum. It was, although there were a large number of Christians on there, surprisingly. And as I'm looking, I'm digging. Keep in mind, I'm like in and out of a job. I didn't have steady employment, so I have all this time to do this research. And as I'm looking and seeing things, I'm finding more and more things that are opening my eyes to, wow, I thought that things weren't quite right. Things are worse than not quite right in this world. And to make a very long story short, I believe that that search for truth eventually led me to find Jesus Christ, or as I know him, I believe the better translation for his name as Yeshua HaMashiach. So I became saved, okay? And this was probably, I was at the age of 35, and the message forum had been alive for about 7 years. And there's all this great info on there, a lot of Christian stuff, a lot of other stuff, monetary system. We talked a lot about secret societies, the Masons, Luciferians, people who worship the devil, which come to find out, unfortunately, a lot of the people that run this world are of that ilk. I believe that to be true. So, I'd say about 7 years into this, well, it was 7 years into this message forum. I'd probably been a member for 3 or 4 years. There was a change in the message forum. And instead of being able to post your opinion about almost any subject, a lot of the members of the forum started to be censored. We started to have our posts deleted. They were modified. People were getting suspended. People were getting banned for no seeming reason. It seemed like the more closely that you posted to the truth, whatever the subject, the more apt you were to get banned. And something's not going on right with this message forum. And a bunch of us were talking behind the scenes, private messages. And I'd say we're talking for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of a night, I'd say anywhere from about 12 midnight to 1 a.m. It might have even been later. It might have even been 2 a.m. I was up. But at 2 a.m., we get a message on the forum saying that the next morning, the entire message forum was going to be deleted. And that the guy who runs the message forum was going off grid. And they may choose to make a new message forum, but this message forum is going to be deleted. So picture this. All of us, most of us, thought that it was a joke. I unfortunately had a feeling that this was real because of everything that was going on with the censoring of the messages, and I just felt I felt inside me that something was not right, which was hard for me to see because this is a big part of the reason that I came to Christ, and a lot of the people there were very helpful to me in my early walk with Jesus. Okay, so sure enough, the next morning, 5 a.m., the entire 7 years worth of message forum posts gone, deleted, like it was never even there. And then they created this new message forum, Gold is Money 2, which still exists today. And I was actually the very first forum member that was banned from that new message forum. You can look it up. My username was Dysgenic, Dysgenic. And what happened afterward was probably one of the most interesting things that I've ever seen in my life. I'd say about half the people went with the new forum and half the people bailed. And, it was amazing to me that they could do something like this and that anybody would support it. Okay, you with me so far? Now, a number of them, and I don't have the information anymore. It's been so long, and I didn't keep any of the information, but I'll tell you what happened behind the scenes. The guy who run the message forum went by the moniker Genghis Khan. I don't know what his real name was. But behind the scenes, somebody looked into it, and it was determined he didn't own the message forum. It was owned by one of the moderators, and unfortunately, he had a very common name. His name was Carl Anderson. I'll put his name right out there if anybody wants to look into it. He went by the moniker Skyvike. And I saw the evidence, but I didn't keep it. And I don't know how, I didn't go too deep into verifying it because it was just so obvious to me. But it was said by a lot of the members that left the message forum that this gentleman, Skyvike Carl Anderson, worked for the federal government, and the location that he had listed for the website address was a government address. I do believe I verified that. And in looking back, when he would talk with this Genghis Khan, who was supposedly going off the grid, he would refer to Genghis Khan as your worshipful master or something like that, which strikes me as a Masonic term. Seems obvious in retrospect. So now, the new website, goldismoney2.com, Genghis Khan claimed he was going off the grid. He's right back to moderating exactly like he was before. Anybody who questioned the official narrative was immediately banned. So this, to me, was like a we're not in Kansas anymore moment. Because why would somebody who owns a message forum that has all this truth on there be working for the government or for the enemy and want to delete everything that they supposedly stood for? Well, that makes no sense, right? And I as I looked into it and then as I watched the world unfold since then, this is actually a very common strategy of the enemy. Lenin said that the best way to control our opposition is to lead it. I don't know if anybody's ever read the book 1984. In 1984, there was a revolution, and the leader of the Revolution Party was someone who worked for the government. Okay, and I don't want to commingle the terms government and excuse me, Masons, Luciferians, things of that nature. I think you'll find out the further you get into this, the more you're going to realize that they're pretty much synonymous at the very top. So, where am I going with this? I have come to believe since then that any of your high profile, or I'll say I won't say all, but the vast majority of your high profile ministries, your high profile organizations, your high profile government representatives are all playing for the same team. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it. There have been a lot of people that have lost their lives in this fight for truth. A lot of it's hidden. There's been a lot of people who have died. They have lost their lives. Bill Cooper is one. Nancy Schaefer. There's many others. I do believe that if there is a high profile ministry out there that is of the truth, God is able to protect that person, but there's very few of them. And it's been my experience that the higher the profile, the less likely it is that something is legit. So I guess this is a warning. I'll say it. I believe President Trump is controlled opposition. I believe it for many different reasons. I have bullet points I can share with you if you'd like to see it. It's what they call a Hegelian dialectic, which was one of the things I learned back in the day. It's a type of false dichotomy, a Democrat or a Republican. The enemy likes to do something that we call a double bind. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't, you ever hear this? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he knows the score. He's going to make it look like, that these factions that may be warring amongst themselves anyway are our enemies, but at the ultimate, they all work for the same team. I just wanted to share this. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. In general, I will answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.